Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Passion Institute podcast. I am so excited about having this woman that I have been in her orbit for the last 2.5 years. And she is one of the most inspiring people I've met in or entrepreneurs organizations. I've sometimes had guests from this amazing community and organization that I spent some time in. And that person is Maria Bijnova. Her CV, like many of my guests, is super long. She has achieved many things, but let me tell you about some of the things that intrigue me, that spark that interest, and questions that we want to ask her so we can get a better insight into what she does and the work that she does. Marina was born in the Soviet Union. She grew up in Ukraine, and now her home is Montreal in Canada. That in itself, that one sentence tells us so much. From a very, very early age, she understood the power of censorship and also this feeling of feeling silenced. And she brings that out in some of her work. When she was growing up in Montreal as a 16-year-old, she would think about democracy. She would think about how to speak up, how to stand out, how she could be more of herself. And, as a teenager, as she grew into adulthood, she talks a lot about that tumultuous journey that she went through to find her inner voice. Today, she's a global speaker. She has been on stages more than I can put into 2 or 3 paragraphs here in America, Europe, Asia, you name it, Middle East. She keeps adding things to her list. She's a leader within EO, and I've seen her on stage work her magic. She's also the founder of an incredible leading personal branding agency called Brand of a Leader. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you will see that brand beautifully in the back. And also, if you look closely on her shirt, as she's highlighting there, her mission is to inspire 1 million people to stand out, to speak up, and to be radically authentic. Welcome, Marina.
Thank you so much for having me, Shivani. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I'm honored to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that we could find some time to be here. Now, tell me, this is called the Passion Institute podcast. So I kind of want to know this word passion and what does it mean to you? Tell me a little bit more about it from your lens.
Well, first of all, I connect with this word on a deep level. One of the exercises that we do with clients at Brand of a Leader when we develop their personal brands is brand perception. So we ask people in their network, people close to them, people who work with them, how would they describe them? 3 adjectives, and then we'll look at that. So I did that exercise for myself, and it was really cool to see that replies can vary, right? People can say all kinds of different things, but unanimously people said passionate and a lot of passion. I equate passion with light in the eyes, with energy, with being deep in our why. And so that's what the word means to me, and I'm connected to it, I would say, quite a bit.
Incredible. Marina, I'm always curious about the guests that I have and how have you come to be who you are? And sometimes they're the high highs in our life, sometimes they're the low lows in our life, but they become those transformational moments who form us into who we are. And I talked about that, touched on it very briefly in the introduction. But I'd love if you could explore that a bit more for our audience and with me. Tell me a bit more about, some of those high highs and low lows that have made you into who you are.
Another descriptor that people use when referring to me is outspoken, and a lot of people will use different variations of that. And some people love it, some people loathe it. Right? I get criticized for it quite a bit as well. But people who love it quite a bit. That comes from really being the exact opposite of the feeling with which I grew up, which was the feeling of not being allowed to be outspoken. So that desire to be opinionated, to be a bit contrarian, to speak up, that was always in me, but it was stifled quite a bit when I was a child because, as you said, when I was born, it was the Soviet Union, and my father was Jewish. And so feeling that sense of caution throughout my upbringing of what to say, what not to say, how to say things on the street, at school, with friends, with neighbors, I felt it quite deeply. I came to Canada, and I really did think I was a 16-year-old, and my daughter now is almost 16. And she certainly does not think today of things I was thinking of growing up, which was democracy. I live in Canada now. I have a voice. Like, what 16-year-old, right? But I did. So to me, that's always been very important, because I have a lot of those just memories from childhood of, saying something a teacher doesn't agree with in class and they lower your grade just because they don't agree, not because your argument is weak. I remember growing up and neighbors disappearing and my parents speaking in whisper, and not being allowed to ask any questions. I remember being in Canada and being so thickly accented that I would be laughed at in class. And so again, I was just grappling with this feeling: do I speak up, or do I just keep my mouth shut and kind of fade into the background? Ended up not shutting my mouth and fading into the background, to shortcut to today. But that formed not only who I am, but also the work that I do today. I want to inspire other people to find their voice and have the courage to be who they are, and to speak their truth and their minds, no matter what it might be.
It's hard to imagine with everything going on in the world right now when people say things like, Marina, there would be whispers or our next door neighbours would disappear. It's this thing that doesn't often, for me, having also been an immigrant, moving to Australia at the age of 11, there's something in there that doesn't, it feels like it's so far away from me and my reality. And so as you were speaking there, I realized so much of the world is kind of facing that right now, and what that means. I want to switch gears for a second, Marina. I know that you help so many leaders, so many organizations create this extraordinary brand. And, your business is called Brand of a Leader. So as a result of that brand, then people within those businesses get passionate about that brand. And I can see, and we were just talking just before we hit record, that your team created this fantastic shirt that you're wearing, like for you to stand out as a leader of your brand, which, is beautiful. So how do you, take us through, how do you create those passionate employees in your business? And how do you see maybe even some leaders where you've helped them create that brand, engage their people? And what are the tips that you could share with us that might really help people go, that's an interesting way to get people to buy into that brand and have that passion around what that exists. So talk me through some of that.
I love that question, because the biggest compliment I can ever receive is about my team members. And when someone tells me, often people will come to know of our organization through me and through my own visibility, and then we'll have a conversation, and then they don't work with me, they work with my team. And often at the end of that process, we'll have a follow-up conversation, and they'll say, Marina, I'll be really honest with you. I was nervous about the fact that I wasn't going to work with you. I was going to work with someone else on your team. But I'm kind of really happy that I did. So inadvertently, they're telling me your team members may be better than you, and they are at what they do. They're better than me, and so it's the biggest compliment that I can receive. In June, for the first time, we sponsored a conference. It was an EO conference, and a few of my team members were there. And so many people would come up and say, I don't know how much you're paying them. I don't know what you're doing, but they're incredible. Where are you finding these people? Where are you finding these people? And so where we ignite that passion in them is, we really are rooted in our core values. We hire through our core values. We make decisions to part with people based on core values. They're not just words on a wall for us at all. So, for example, one of our core values is we are in awe, meaning we're so passionate about the work that we do. We're so passionate about our clients. We're in awe of them. So when we see that light in the eye, when we're interviewing people, we care a lot less about the skill set. We care about the light in the eye. When we're working with someone and their skill set is great, but they kind of lose that, they become more transactional in their approach, that's no longer the right person for us, because we'll look for that, again, passion, that awe. And so we have our set of core values that are crucial to us, and we really stay true to them. We also, another thing that we've been doing is deconstructing people's job descriptions and not holding them as something really rigid. One of the things that I do, a lot of people ask me, how do you find time for everything? You probably never sleep. You don't do any self-care. I sleep a lot and I engage in a lot of self-care. What I do is energy audits. I look at what drains my energy, what gives me energy, And I then take on tasks and projects in alignment with that. And I've been teaching my team members to do the same, to tell me honestly if something's beginning to drain their energy, because it drains theirs, but someone on the team might love that type of a thing. And then we reassign. And then that keeps people motivated and engaged as well. And also, we do really fun work. It's personal branding for CEOs and entrepreneurs. It's all incredible clients that we get to work with. And we do high impact work because it's not corporate branding, it's personal branding. And so our clients talk to us about the transformation, the pre-brand of a leader and post-brand of a leader. And that's really motivating to our team members as well.
Yeah, beautiful. That's an incredible way. I love the fact that when you just said we hire on core values and we kind of exit people based on a mismatch of core values as well. And a lot of people talk about those values, but I love how you've integrated that into so many aspects of the way that you run your business.
And it's
The
hard to
next
do
question.
because, when someone is performing really well and delivers great work, but just is misaligned on core values, it's a hard decision to make. But we've made it a few times with very heavy hearts. And it's always been the right decision because that energy then translates to the entire team.
Yeah, and aren't energy audits the best? Like I remember actually coming across in a forum retreat in EO, and somebody sort of said, you do a regular audit of what fills your cup and what drains your cup. And I was like, oh my God, like it's like, whether it's people, whether it's processes, whether it's certain things, and when you do that regularly, how awesome is that? So I love that you've got that practice in there as well. The next question is loaded, Marina. I'm just going to give you a heads up. Like it's loaded in the sense that I want to know a couple of really things that you've learned or maybe even relearned in business. And what are some of the lessons that you've done? And I know that we both belong to a learning organization. We could probably just talk about this question like for 3-4 hours at least.
Yes.
Great. So it's loaded in the sense that I'm kind of asking you to pick 1, 2, 3 key learnings where either you live by them or maybe it's a philosophy or maybe you keep relearning that. What are some of the things that you've learned in business for those entrepreneurs and leaders that are tuning in to this? What are some of the lessons that they could learn from your lessons?
Love that question. So, number one, I remember years ago, I think I might have just become a member of EO. So, over a decade ago, I was at an event and the speaker said, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And I took that on board. And so I was also like, when you just first join EO and you're such a keener and like I was young, I was like, everything I hear, I'm doing it, I'm implementing it. And that was one thing I implemented. And I'm so, so grateful that I did. So for example, right now, brand of a leader, my executive assistant, she's really my right hand. She's really, in many ways, my partner in crime. And I find that it's absolutely priceless. A lot of business owners say, but what if I don't have enough work for them? What if time goes in a snap of fingers when the person's right and they're the right fit? They're overwhelmed with work. You start thinking, do they need an assistant? Do they need someone to help them? So that's number one. Number two, it's another thing actually that I learned in EO is the importance of looking at ourselves as in our totality. So that idea of the totality of the entrepreneur and looking at all of the buckets and constantly filling all of them. So I'm a huge fan of routines. I have a morning routine and a nighttime routine, and I journal and I take really good care of myself. And when I travel, I think of how I can supplement all of those things and make sure that, for example, next week I'm going to LA for a conference, and I have my 2 Pilates classes booked. I found studios nearby, and so all of those things. That's number two. And then number three, for anyone considering a business partner, I had a huge lesson learned from a business that failed before Brand of a Leader. And I learned how important it is when we're selecting a business partner to select on the basis of shared core values, yes, but also on the complementarity of the skill set. I've seen so many business owners, and I was one of those. That was my field business of choosing a business partner who's just like you. You're friends. You're the same. Oh my God, we're the same person. We finish each other's sentences. It's so amazing. But then at some point, as the business grows, you need to have completely different roles. You're not two CEOs. And that can lead to a big crash. So my big lesson learned in partnership is approaching partnership in more of a cold-headed way, having a shareholders agreement and having all of those things in place. Where again, with the first business, I didn't have as many first-time business owners, and then finding the right partner, just not on the basis of we're the same, but we are the same in our core values, but we're different in our skill set. I've found that to be exceptionally beneficial.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? I hear so many stories. I've never had a business partner, but I hear so many stories where it's great when it's going well and it's horrific when it's not going well. And I love that rather than, being sensible, you're like, just look at it with a cool head. Just don't go in hot headed and all excited and just, yeah, learn from that. And thank you for sharing that because sometimes we learn more from the things that haven't worked than, the
A
things that
lot.
have always worked as well.
A
Yeah.
lot, a lot. I have a whole list of lessons learned from that failure, which was very hard to talk about for a very long time, right? Because when we fail, especially with something like this or business, we identify with it so much, right? I've learned that also another big lesson learned is my business is not my identity. It's part of what I do, but it's not who I am. And that's such a difficult distinction to make because when you're passionate, you live and breathe it. But just to be able to have that separation and say, well, this is what I do. I love it. I love it to bits and pieces, but it doesn't define me. So if it fails, I didn't fail. This project failed, has been a very big mindset shift for me as well.
Yeah, yeah. If it fails, it fails. I love that. That it's not all of it. It's almost like the leader of the brand. Like you can play with that. That it's not just all about this thing, this identity that we often spend a lot of time. I know when I exited my business, I certainly had a bit of an identity crisis, and I had to do some deep work on it to sort of work out, well, who I am. I like if I've got this 6 months sabbatical, and I don't even know who I am. But that's for another day. Um, I wanted to know, Marina, when challenges come your way, and we have daily challenges, whether they're in our business or personal lives or our family life. Some people have a process that they attack it. Some people go quiet. Some people go for a walk. So people process challenges that come their way differently. And I wanted to know, what does Marina do? What does Marina do when challenges come her way, small, medium, large? And what's your process? What's your ritual? How do you attack it?
So first of all, I see a psychologist on a biweekly schedule always. And I remember when my children heard about it, and they said, "Well, why? What's the problem? Do you like what's the problem? What's the issue?" And I said, "No, there's none." I said, "It's like going to the gym. You just go, and whatever the schedule, it's not a question of an issue or a problem, kind of preventing an issue or a problem." So to me, one, being able to constantly have that rhythm where I'm always talking my things through has been a game changer. I started with psychoanalysts. Now I work with a psychologist. Has been fantastic. I have a coach, so I talk things through with my coach, and I'm saying more of a personal coach, not the business coach. With the business coach, which we also have, we discuss business related challenges. I journal. And then really, I am very plugged into my network of close people to me. As I think maybe that's a gender thing, or maybe I'm extrapolating, but talking things out makes things a lot less dramatic. So I find that when there's a challenge, just by talking it through in my forum in EO, with my closest friends, with my business partner, as I talk things through, they seem to also become a lot less acute. So support network, I would say that is my biggest blessing in life.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And as we get older, the right people around you and being able to make sure that you can work through that is incredible. What about the future? There's so many things that you've already achieved, and I probably read out, a third, maybe even a quarter of your CV that I've got access to, Marina. So, what about some of your future aspirations, future passions? What are some of the things that are things that you go, I want to do that or achieve that or be that? Take me through and our audience through some of that.
So, what I'm really excited about, and this is going to circle back to something that you shared earlier, and you said that's for another time. So, that time's on its way. I'm actually working on a master's degree right now. And someone asked me, "Oh, is it an online program?" No, 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 no. University with students much younger than me. I did all of the coursework. It was extremely humbling. And now I'm working on my thesis. So in April, I'm supposed to get my master's degree. The topic of the thesis is the dark side of an exit. So the emotional component of a successful exit. I'm studying entrepreneurs who sold financially successful by their own metric. Everyone has a different metric. And then it wasn't, the champagne and the celebration and congratulations because it's a phenomenal achievement. Once that became, less acute, all of a sudden, studies show that 75% of entrepreneurs regret their exit in the first year, which is incredible. And so I want to study that. What happened? And for some people, it's as I said, it's loss of identity. For other people, it's irrational fears. What if I can never make money again? All of those things. And so I'm studying that. As soon as my thesis is completed, I'm going to do a wide study. For the thesis, it's 15 entrepreneurs. I want to speak with hundreds. And so once I do that, then I will complete a really wide study. I'll be able to see how do entrepreneurs reinvent themselves and what happens to them on the identity side of things. And is what happens to them on the identity side different depending on the kind of entrepreneurial motivation they have? Right? Because some entrepreneurs are motivated by financial success, but others by impacting their community, others by, right, they're different. And so that's what I'm going to study. Then I'll create this wide study. I'll study several hundred, 200 to 300 entrepreneurs. And then the dream is the book. And, I have this real dream. I want to publish an article in Harvard Business Review. And I already have a connection who said, okay, once your study is complete and it's legit, then I will introduce it to the editor. So those are things that I dream of on one side. The other side is, of course, brand of a leader. We have big aspirations. In just 4.5 years, we grew to work with clients in 12 different countries. So we help build personal brands of CEOs and founders in 12 different countries. We're in the second spot in Google search completely organically through thought leadership. Very proud of that. And our dream and goal is to become the industry thought leader in the space. We're seeing other agencies begin to imitate us, begin to copy us, begin to use some of our materials. We'll love it because imitation is the best form of flattery. And our goal is to become the leader in the space that people pay the most attention to. So that's what's next.
So rich. So many things. I love the fact that you're going to start with 15 entrepreneurs and then end up with 200 or 300. And we'll talk about this another day, but I ended up interviewing 30 plus entrepreneurs to understand how to do my own exit. And that was fascinating for me because I was like, they're kind of, even though they're not connected in any way, they're kind of telling me very similar things. And I actually applied my top 3 learnings from those interviews and ended up with a much better exit multiple. And
it's so smart that you did that, because so many people will just go into it, right? Instead of preparing and asking others who've done it. It's really awesome that you did.
Yeah, because to be honest with you, I didn't know how to do it. I knew how to start businesses. I didn't know how to exit. So
Right.
I went,
So
I'm going to lean on some of my EO community. I'm going to lean on some people that I know in other networks, and I'm going to go and talk to them. And they were very generous. Not one person said no. And before I knew it, I'd sort of talked to a bunch of people. So it was a fascinating exercise. In fact, somebody asked me a question about that yesterday. Marina, you've already talked a little bit about my next question, which is mental wellness. Like, what do? You talked about the fact that you really do some self-care. You also talked about having regular appointment with professionals like a psychologist. I wanted to know, I think, other things that you do, whether it's daily, weekly, annually, in addition to some of that, or did we kind of cover that question before?
Well, one thing that I can share, Shivani, that I really have not shared publicly is that I, for very many years, struggled with really deep anxiety. It was to the point I had a really hard time, speaking on stage. I often would think, do I even want to be doing public speaking? And there was that crazy tension because it had been my dream to do public speaking because I wanted to have a voice. And then all of a sudden I'm crippled with anxiety and, thinking maybe I shouldn't even be doing that. And so for me, I'm now in a place where I've been able to calm my anxiety to really encouraging degree, but I know that it's a constant, it's work in progress. It's kind of like, once an addict or always an addict, you just have to, employ your best practices. I think it's similar. And so to me, that's where working with a psychologist regularly helps it. We don't even talk about anxiety necessarily anymore, but it helps. He's given me a lot of really helpful ways of reposition things. It's rooted in learning to trust myself, right? Because anxiety is the unknown. And so I'm thinking, what if I come on stage and I don't know, the slides don't work, or I forget what I'm saying, or I trip, or I don't know, my shirt opens, or I don't know what happens, somebody laughs. And I've learned this mantra of telling myself that I need to trust myself and I'll figure it out once it happens. If something happens, I'll be able to figure it out. It's been extremely helpful to me. And then I've noticed that if ever I skip out on my morning and nighttime journaling and the time that I set where I sit down and I think of, I reflect on the day and I do my gratitude and what energy do I want to fall asleep in today. And then I do something similar in the morning for the day. When I don't do it, my day just does not go as well whatsoever. And I've developed a lot of spirituality in general in the last few years. I think since my big business crash, I turned to the universe and to, something bigger than me. And I work with a coach who helps me set a vision 3 years out. And then I meditate, listening to that future vision, which has been incredibly um, just calming in many ways, as far as mental health as well, trusting that things will work out versus constantly having that nervous energy around. And working out. I have my schedule that's always around the schedule on my daughter's dance practices, because when you're a mom, you have to stack things and be creative. So she has dance 3 times a week. My son has tennis once a week. That gives me 4 gym practices while they're doing their thing. I get to do my thing, and that works quite well as well. Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden. I can't hear you.
That was me. I said, I love the fact that, some people go, my family's so important to me and this is what I do. And you're like, yeah, my family's really important. Everything is around them. But when they're doing this, I'm doing this. So the fact that you've really stacking that time and maximizing it is incredible. Rena, tell people about what's the best places to find you. Perhaps somebody who's listening in might be looking at getting their brand and really looking at who they are and what they want to do with their brand. But they also might go, this woman is super awesome, which you are. And how do they follow you? What are the best platforms to find you?
So a couple, definitely LinkedIn. My name is very difficult to pronounce, even more difficult to spell. But the benefit of that is there's no other Marina Bijnova on LinkedIn. So if someone just copies and pastes my name into LinkedIn, I'm the only one that's going to come up. So that's a great place. And of course, our website is brandofaleader.com. And our contact information is there, and we're very available. And I love connecting with amazing people. So LinkedIn or through our website.
Beautiful. I could keep speaking to you for a long time, Marina. We're going to have a bit of a chat after we stop recording. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.